Okay, picture this. It's game 7, final seconds on the clock. You're at the free throw line.
Yeah.
The crowd noise just fades away, right? Total hush. This player, they've made thousands of these shots. It's automatic for them.
Should be. Yeah.
And then clang off the rim. You're just standing there thinking, what just happened?
Mm.
That moment, that sudden failure when everything's on the line. That's what we're getting into today. Psychologists actually have a name for it. Chinking under pressure.
And it's interesting because choking, it's not just feeling a bit nervous. It's a very specific thing psychologists talk about.
Right.
Where your performance really tanks, even though you absolutely know how to do the task. You've mastered it.
We see it everywhere, don't we?
Yeah.
Like a speaker freezing up or a musician fumbling a piece they know backwards.
Oh, absolutely. Or even, simpler things. Like you suddenly can't remember your usual coffee order when the barista asks. It's that weird disconnect, what you can do versus what you actually do when you feel that pressure.
Exactly. We've all felt our brains to just betray us sometimes. So today, our mission is to figure out why this happens. And maybe more importantly, what practical things you can actually do about it so it doesn't derail you.
And we're basing this on solid ground, right? We're digging into the research, the work from psychologists who study this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Not just pulling ideas out of thin air.
And if you think about your own life, maybe a big presentation coming up or an important meeting.
Or even just a tough personal challenge.
Yeah. Understanding this, how choking works and how to handle it, that can really give you an edge.
All right, let's get into it. When someone does choke, what's actually happening inside their head?
Okay, so there are a couple of main ideas, theories that psychologists focus on. The first one, it's called distraction theory.
Distraction theory. Okay, so distractions like someone yelling from the stands or your phone buzzing.
Well, not usually external things like that. It's more about internal distraction.
Ah, okay, inside your head.
Exactly. When you're feeling the pressure, your mind can just get flooded with worries. Anxious thoughts, self-doubt.
Like, what if I mess this up? Or everyone's watching me fail.
Precisely those kinds of thoughts. They start hogging all your mental bandwidth.
So it's less about actual noise and more about the noise inside your own head getting too loud.
That's a great way to put it. It's like your working memory, the mental space you need to focus gets clogged up with all this worry.
Right.
So the signal for the skill you know so well, it kind of gets lost.
Okay.
And think about this one study actually showed that just knowing you're being watched can reduce your working memory capacity by about 10%.
10%.
Yeah.
Just because someone's looking. That's huge.
It is significant, yeah.
Suddenly those things people say, like, hey, don't screw this up, they sound even less helpful.
Right. They're just adding to the mental static.
Exactly.
And you might wonder, does being really smart or skilled protect you from this?
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Surprisingly, no. Research shows even really high performers, say, top math students, they can still choke on tough problems when the pressure's on.
Wow.
It's not about lacking the ability, it's just that mental space getting overwhelmed.
Okay, so theory 1. Pressure creates internal distractions that steal focus. Got it. What's the second big theory?
The second one is called explicit monitoring.
Explicit monitoring.
Yeah.
Okay, what's that about?
This is more about when we start consciously trying to control actions or processes that are normally automatic, things we've practiced so much we don't usually think about.
If you suddenly start thinking really hard about how you walk down the street, it feels super awkward.
Exactly that feeling. So think about a golfer, a really experienced one with a smooth, natural putting stroke. Under pressure, they might suddenly start thinking, okay, how's my arm swinging? Is my wrist angle right? They start dissecting every little bit of it.
Right. Overthinking something that should just flow. Your brain tries to micromanage the autopilot.
And it just jams the system. There's research on this, too. A study with pro golfers found their putting got about 30% worse.
30%.
Yeah. When they were told to focus specifically on their arm technique compared to just focusing on the hole, the target.
That's a massive drop. So trying too hard to control the automatic stuff makes us worse. Is there a kitschy name for that?
There is, actually. It's often called paralysis by analysis.
Paralysis by analysis. I like that. Makes sense.
And that overthinking. It also causes physical tension. Your heart rate goes up, muscles get stiff, which of course makes it even harder to perform smoothly.
It's interesting how these two theories seem to fit different kinds of tasks, maybe. Like Distraction for brainy stuff, explicit monitoring for physical skills.
That's a really sharp observation. Yeah, cognitive tasks, problem solving, they often suffer more from that internal noise, the distraction,
Okay.
whereas physical skills are more vulnerable to breaking down when you overthink the mechanics, the explicit monitoring.
And I guess sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes you get hit with both at once. The perfect storm.
The perfect storm for completely bombing. Okay, so we have these two main ways pressure messes with us. Distraction and explicit monitoring. But why? Why are some situations way more likely to make us choke? What factors really turn up the heat?
Good question. There are several key factors, and one might surprise you a bit. It's skill level.
Skill level. Wait, you mean experts choke more? That seems backward.
It does seem counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
But think about it. Beginners, they're already thinking consciously about every single step.
Yeah.
There's no smooth autopilot to disrupt. Experts, though, they rely heavily on those automatic ingrained skills.
Oh, okay.
So when the pressure hits hard, it can knock that autopilot offline. It forces them into that conscious, clunky overthinking, the explicit monitoring we just talked about.
So the very thing that makes them an expert, that automaticity becomes a weakness under pressure.
Exactly. It's like the brain, used to flying on instruments, suddenly grabs the manual controls and doesn't quite remember how they work.
Wow, okay, that reframes it completely. The more automatic the skill, the more pressure can mess it up. What else? What other factors increase the odds of choking?
Well, having an audience definitely plays a big role. Just knowing people are watching adds pressure.
Yeah,
But it's often amplified depending on who is watching.
right. Like performing in front of strangers versus your boss or your family.
Exactly. If it's people whose opinions really matter to you, a coach, judges, maybe parents, the pressure ramps up.
Oh, I totally get that. I remember freezing up during a school soccer game whenever my mom was watching from the sidelines, even though it's just kid soccer.
Yeah, that feeling is real. And then, of course, there are the stakes themselves.
The importance of the moment.
The higher the perceived importance, the bigger the consequences of success or failure, the more pressure we feel.
Makes sense.
There was actually a study that tried to measure this. They found about a 23% increase in how much pressure people felt in moments they saw as crucial.
23%.
Yeah.
You can feel that difference, like a job interview versus just chatting with a colleague.
Definitely. Those high-stakes situations, like job interviews, are classic choke territory for many people.
Okay, what about personality? Are some of us just naturally more prone to this?
It seems so, yes. Certain traits can make you more susceptible.
Like what?
People who are generally more anxious tend to report choking more often. Same for perfectionists.
Perfectionists. That makes sense.
Yeah, that intense fear of making a mistake, of not being perfect, it can really amplify the pressure's negative effects.
It's a vicious cycle, isn't it? The more you worry about messing up, the more likely you are to do it.
It can be. And one last factor, which is maybe more physical, our state.
You mean like being tired or stressed out already?
Exactly. General stress, and especially lack of sleep, significantly bumps up the likelihood of choking.
Really? How much?
Well, some research suggests being sleep-deprived can increase your chances of performance decline under pressure by something like 40%.
40%. Wow. So being tired makes you way more vulnerable.
Absolutely. When your system is already running on fumes, adding pressure is much harder to handle.
Okay, this is all fascinating, but maybe a bit depressing. We know how we choke and why certain things make it worse. Now, the big question, what can we actually do? How do we fight back against pressure?
Right, the practical stuff. And thankfully, yes, there are strategies, proven ones.
Good. What's first?
One of the most effective is to deliberately practice under pressure.
Practice under pressure. Isn't the goal to feel less pressure? That sounds kind of stressful itself.
It can be initially, but the idea isn't necessarily to eliminate pressure entirely. That's often impossible. It's about learning to perform well even when you do feel it.
Okay, how do you do that?
You basically recreate stressful conditions during practice. Maybe play loud music, have people watch you closely, even introduce small bets or minor consequences for errors.
So like building up an immunity to the stress, like exposure therapy.
That's a great analogy. It really is like that. There was a study with dart players. The ones who practiced under simulated pressure conditions, they improved their actual performance by about 15% compared to those who just practiced normally.
15% is pretty good. So simulating the heat works. What else can we do?
Another really powerful technique is something called stress inoculation.
Stress inoculation. Like a vaccine against stress.
Exactly, that's the idea. You expose yourself to small, manageable doses of stress first. This helps you build coping skills and confidence so you can handle bigger stressors later.
Okay, a stress vaccine. I like it. How does it work in practice?
Usually, it's a three-step process.
Hmm.
First, you really understand how pressure affects you, specifically your thoughts, feelings, physical reactions.
That's all work.
Second, you build a toolkit of coping skills to manage those reactions, things like breathing techniques, positive self-talk, etc.
Right.
And third, you practice using those skills in progressively more stressful real-life situations.
Gradual exposure.
Yeah. And some coaches even ramp it up. Like you mentioned earlier, maybe adding small consequences in practice, like doing push-ups for mistakes, just to heighten that feeling a bit.
The push-ups again. Okay, maybe something a bit less
Yeah.
physically demanding. Is there another approach?
Definitely. Another very effective strategy is developing a consistent pre-performance routine.
A routine, like athletes have. Those little rituals they do.
Precisely. Think of Rafael Nadal before he serves, all those specific movements.
Yeah, the bottle placement, the fiddling.
It's not superstition, though. Those routines serve a real psychological purpose. They help calm nerves, focus the mind, and create a sense of control and familiarity right before you perform.
Ah, okay, so it shifts your focus away from the anxiety and onto something predictable. Does it actually work? Is there proof?
Yes, research supports it. A study on soccer players found that using a pre-performance routine reduced their anxiety levels by around 17%.
17% reduction in anxiety, that's worthwhile.
And it doesn't need to be elaborate. We're talking maybe 3 to 5 simple actions lasting less than 30 seconds.
Short and sweet.
The key is consistency. You do the same thing every time. It becomes an anchor.
Okay, a short, consistent anchor. Makes sense. Now, what about during the actual performance? We talked about how overthinking that explicit monitoring is bad news.
Exactly. So the crucial thing here is where you direct your focus.
Okay.
You want to focus on the desired outcome, not get bogged down in the process.
So for the basketball player, think about the ball going in the hoop, not about their elbow position.
Precisely. Visualize success. Focus on the target, the goal.
But how do you stop your brain from hijacking that? From starting to worry about the mechanics when the pressure's really on?
That's where something called anchor words can be incredibly helpful.
Anchor words, what are those?
They're short, powerful words or simple phrases you can use as a quick mental cue, a trigger to refocus yourself in the moment.
Like what? Give me an example.
Could be super simple. Just focus or breathe. Or maybe something like smooth stroke for a golfer or hit it for a tennis player.
Okay. Like a little bit mental reset button you can press.
Exactly. It helps interrupt that spiral of overthinking or panic and snacks you back to a performance mindset.
I can see how that would work. Quick and easy to use.
And beyond those specific techniques, just general relaxation and mindset stuff is also really important for managing pressure overall.
You mean like deep breathing?
Yeah, deep breathing is a classic for a reason. Techniques like the 4-7-8 method, breathe in for 4, hold for 7, exhale slowly for 8 that can physically calm your nervous system.
Okay.
Progressive muscle relaxation is another one, tensing and releasing muscle groups, helps get rid of physical tension. And then there's the mental side, your self-talk. Actively catching negative thoughts, I'm going to fail, and replacing them with positive ones, I'm prepared, I've got this.
Positive affirmations.
Yeah. And visualization, too. Mentally rehearsing success before you even start. Michael Phelps was famous for doing this.
Right. Visualizing the perfect race.
It primes your brain for success.
Okay, so we've got this great toolkit. Practice under pressure, stress inoculation, pre-performance routines, focusing on the outcome, anchor words, relaxation, positive self-talk, visualization. Wow.
Yeah. Quite a few options.
How do we apply these to more everyday stressful situations, like not just sports finals, but, say, taking an exam?
Good question. The principles translate pretty well. For exams, you can practice under pressure by using strict timers for practice questions.
Simulate the time crunch.
Exactly. And minimize distractions when you study. Try to make it feel like the real test environment. Research actually shows timed practice helps boost scores.
Okay, that's a concrete tip.
And then on exam day, use a quick pre-test routine right before you start, a few deep breaths, maybe a quick positive anchor word, just center yourself.
Makes sense. What about public speaking? That's a huge one for lots of people.
Absolutely. Again, practice under pressure is key. Rehearse in front of other people, friends, family, colleagues.
Get used to the eyes being on you.
Yeah. Record yourself too.
Yeah.
It helps you see what the audience sees and get comfortable with being observed. Even practice in a mirror.
And remember, the pros do it too, right?
Definitely. Think about TED speakers. They often rehearse hundreds of times, and most have their own little pre-stage rituals to manage nerves.
Hundreds of times.
Yeah.
Okay, that puts my quick run-through into perspective. What about things like job interviews? Or maybe salary negotiations? Those feel high stakes.
For sure. Mock interviews are fantastic practice for interviews. Get a friend to grill you.
Good idea.
And absolutely use that pre-performance routine before you walk into the room or before the call starts. Take a minute to get centered.
Right.
And keep that focus on the outcome, I want this job, or here's the salary I'm aiming for, not on the fear of saying the wrong thing.
Focus on the win, not the worry. I like that. It sounds simple, but it feels like a really important shift.
It really is.
Okay, before we finish up, let's do a super quick recap of the key terms we've used today, just to make sure they stick.
Good idea. Okay, first, choke. That's the big one.
Right, the sudden nosedive in performance under pressure, even when you know what you're doing, like missing that easy shot.
Exactly. Then paralysis by analysis.
That's the overthinking trap, right? Thinking so hard about the details you can't actually perform.
Yeah.
Like the musician losing the rhythm because they're focused on every single finger movement.
Perfect example. Third, pre-performance routine.
Our short, consistent set of actions before the task, like the deep breaths and visualization combo, helps you focus, calms you down.
Precisely. Fourth, anger word.
The quick mental cue, that short word or phrase you use to snap back into focus, like whispering confidence before you start talking.
Yep. And finally, stress inoculation.
The stress vaccine idea, practicing with small amounts of pressure to build up your tolerance for the big moments, like athletes training in noisy or distracting environments.
You got it. That covers the main ones.
Fantastic. So boiling it all down, if someone wants to avoid choking, what are the top 3 strategies they should really remember?
Okay, the 3 big takeaways I'd say are 1, practice under pressure. Deliberately simulate stressful conditions.
Build that resilience.
2, have a pre-performance routine. Make it short, consistent, and use it every time.
Get focused and calm.
And 3, manage your focus. Direct your attention to the desired outcome, not the mechanics of the process or the fear of failure.
Practice, routine, focus on the goal.
Got it. And I think it's also really important how we think about choking if it does happen.
Oh, absolutely.
Instead of seeing it as just like total failure, maybe see it more as feedback.
Exactly. It's information. It tells you something about your preparation or your mindset or maybe the coping strategies you used or didn't use.
Right. It highlights where you might need to adjust things for next time. It's not a final verdict on your ability.
Well said. It's a learning opportunity, not a label. A chance to grow.
So for everyone listening, maybe think about choosing just one strategy we talked about today and consciously try it out the next time you feel that pressure mounting. See what happens. Yeah, and maybe reflect for a second. Think back to a time you felt you choked. Looking back now, which of these ideas might have helped?
And which one feels like something you could realistically try next time?
It's all about building that mental toolkit.
Definitely. This whole deep dive, really, it's about understanding ourselves better under pressure and finding ways to perform closer to our potential, even when things get tough. It's about growth.
Couldn't agree more.
Thanks for digging into this with us today.